Hello again everybody, and I'm going to talk today about the second Roman building in my series. This is the very famous Pantheon. In 126 AD, a large new building was dedicated in Rome on the return of the Emperor Hadrian to the city. We've got a pretty good idea of what it looked like, but we don't know for certain what it was actually called. Now known as the Pantheon, and it's often described as a temple to all the gods, it's actually full of intrigue and enigma. So what do we know about it for sure, and why is it so influential? Well, it actually stands on the site of two earlier buildings, both of which were destroyed by fire. The first of these, which was probably called the Pantheon, according to Pliny the Elder, the one who was killed when Vesuvius erupted, was built at the behest of the Emperor Augustus's political and artistic fixer Marcus Agrippa. And that was completed almost certainly in 25 BC. Thus the inscription over the entrance to the building as it is now, mention more of that later. That building was destroyed by fire and then rebuilt in 80 AD. This building itself was hit by lightning and destroyed in 110 AD. And some say that some Romans said, well, if you make a temple to all the gods, then because that breaks the law as described by Livy, then it's no wonder the gods have punished it by striking it with lightning. Still, the rebuilding may have started under Trajan, or it may have started under Hadrian. We're not actually sure. Either it was 114 or perhaps a little later, maybe as late as 118. We don't really know what the predecessors of the current building were like, but the building that's now called the Pantheon is certainly remarkable. It's got two separate sections, the porch and the rotunda. Now the porch is dominated by massive columns, but these aren't quite what they seem. If you know where to stand in the Piazza della Rotonda outside the Pantheon, you can see that the original plan for the building was supposed to have taller columns. That is, you can see the outline of the planned pediment. It should have been 60 Roman feet high, and actually it turns out to be 50 Roman feet high. Seemed that there was a problem with getting the materials. Perennial problem of builders both then and now. So in time to complete the project, the architect had to make do with the available shorter columns. Now Hadrian was definitely not a man to upset with incomplete buildings. If he said he wanted it ready at a certain time, sure as hell made certain it got ready for that time. So having shorter columns is probably the lesser of two evils. So walking through the porchway, on reaching the massive doors, you encounter the second enigma, or the second bit of intrigue. Although these are ancient looking, they're definitely not the originals. The bronze doors, together with some bronze girders, were robbed by a much later pope to melt down and make into cannons for the Castel Sant'Angelo, and a little of the bronze might also have found its way into Bernini's baldacchino in St. Peter's. The doors don't fit very well either, as you can see. Passing into the rotunda, you can't fail to gasp at the roof. It's massive. It's still the largest unsupported concrete dome in the world. An amazing achievement to think that this was made in the 120s AD. From the inside, it looks unrelentingly grey, almost unreal, and it may originally have had bronze gilding which would have made it sparkle a little more. Clearly this building is the work of genius, as that dome is self-supported, and it culminates in the Oculus, with the eye which is open to the sky. Now statistics are sometimes quoted in meters, but they're much more impressive and they make much more sense in the case of the Pantheon in Roman feet. A globe 150 Roman feet in diameter fits entirely within the building. The oculus is 30 Roman feet. The walls are 20 Roman feet thick. So these dimensions were clearly worked out by the builders, and they make mathematical sense. There's a certain mathematical beauty about those. The dome is coffered so that it has less mass, and it's considerably thinner at the top than at the bottom, as you can see from the outline on the picture of the outside of the dome, which is not curved as the inside of the dome is. And that's another enigma. It's what you see from the inside is not quite what it seems. three final intrigues or enigmas about the building. The pediment, which you see from the piazza, had bronze relief sculpture in it, probably an eagle and a crown, symbolising the power of Rome, and bronze ribbons stretching into the corners. The inscription was probably recreated by the Hadrianic builders and is not the original from the original temple under Marcus Agrippa. It's unlikely to have survived the fire. So there's been some discussion also about whether Agrippa would have had that made in the time that he was the third consul. Some coinage evidence suggests that that might have been an indication that he was put up posthumously. But the whole building was clad in white marble and or stucco, so plaster with white marble dust in it, which would have given the effect of stone throughout. So the whole thing would have looked, rather than dull brick as it is now, the whole thing would have looked gleaming white. Despite these oddities and deceptions and enigmas, the building is hugely influential. There are a number of buildings which have copied its basic ideas, everything from this house on an island in Windermere, so-called Belle Isle Island, the Central Library in Manchester, the Jefferson Library in the University of Virginia. Whatever, whenever, wherever, the whole effect and the influence of the Pantheon is simply magnificent.